I don't know about you, but I just can't get enough of this Hunter Biden thing and the way this plea deal fell apart and what was really going on there between his attorneys and the prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's talk to a former member of the Justice Department. He is Hans von Spakovsky, and he's over there at the Heritage Foundation. Hans, have you ever seen a plea deal quite like this one?
No. You know that get out of jail free card you get in Monopoly?
Yeah.
That's what the Justice Department, the prosecutors were trying to hand to Hunter Biden. You know, tax charges, which normally are charged as felonies, and they weren't even recommending prison time. The plea agreement said he was going to get probation, and on a federal gun charge, which also normally lands you in jail, it was going to be a diversion program. And it started falling apart, as you know, when the judge started asking detailed questions about it, and she didn't like the answers she was getting from either the prosecution or the defense.
I've heard some people refer to the language here with regard to immunity that Hunter Biden and his lawyers were trying to get, and the way this was detailed by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware, that there was basically an implicit wink and a nod in there. That Hunter Biden's team surely thought that this was going to end everything, and it wasn't until that judge really probed and said, are there more charges coming? Is there a larger investigation here? Where, for political reasons, I think, the U.S. attorney had to agree to that. Do you think that's the case here, that this was sort of if no one had asked questions, this basically would have been the end of it?
Yes, if no one had asked questions, it would have been. And you would think that in a case with this much attention, they would have ironed out completely the agreement down to the smallest detail, and yet they didn't do that to the point where when the judge is asking him questions about it, there's disagreement between the prosecution and the defense on what exactly the agreement does if it is agreed to and accepted. Did you notice also, Larry, that the lawyers who have been involved in this from the beginning, David Weiss, Leslie Wolf, they were not in the courtroom.
Yeah.
These are the individuals that the IRS whistleblowers have complained about, yet they weren't there to answer any questions from the judge. All these new lawyers who hadn't worked on the case were there, and I think that's exactly why they were there. So they couldn't answer any of the questions raised by the testimony of those IRS whistleblowers.
Hans, I read with keen interest what you wrote about this at Daily Signal earlier, and you hone in on the idea now that there is still an ongoing investigation specifically linked to FARA. FARA is the Foreign Agents Reporting Act. It means that if you're operating on behalf of a foreign entity in this country to try to get political favors, you've got to register, and Hunter Biden didn't register. What does that tell you in terms of what should be the scope of this investigation? Should the U.S. attorney actually take it seriously?
Of course he should, and I don't understand why Hunter Biden hasn't already been charged. Keep in mind that just a little while ago, the Justice Department filed charges against another individual, a man named Luff, for receiving $700,000 from this Chinese energy company because he was basically lobbying on their behalf with the federal government. That's the same company that paid Hunter Biden $5 million to do exactly the same thing, and yet they still haven't charged him with that? Yeah. I don't get that at all.
Well, and let's face it, the corroborating evidence is all over the laptop. All those emails where you've got these foreign entities, and all they're talking about is Hunter Biden trying to get things done for them, right? I mean, that's right. What FARA is all about.
No, the evidence here is plain. By the way, going back to the get out of jail free card, keep in mind that Hunter Biden didn't even have to pay all the taxes he owed the government. They were actually paid by this Hollywood lawyer on his behalf.
Right, yeah. That would be the one who was caught smoking a bong on his balcony last week, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that tells you a little bit about the company that Hunter Biden keeps.
All right, so listen, we've had a lot of conversation here about Hunter Biden, but really, Hans, this is about Joe Biden. This is the man in the White House. Yeah. If, in fact, as you just said, the evidence shows obviously that Hunter Biden was being paid because of the influence that he might be able to wield with the U.S. government, that means only one thing. It means his dad. Hunter Biden himself has said, I only got these jobs because my last name is Biden. So that means that his dad is involved because he was the one that Hunter was influencing.
Yeah, exactly right. And remember, it wasn't that long ago that Joe Biden was bragging about the fact that he had managed to get a Ukrainian prosecutor fired. And what was that Ukrainian prosecutor doing? Investigating Burisma, the company that was paying Hunter Biden. If that doesn't reek of corruption, I mean, I just don't know what does.
So explain this law to me, because I have a hunch that there's going to be a lot of people in this town trying to run interference for the president and for his family and for the party for that matter. And they'll say, listen, I guess this is all circumstantial evidence, but anything Joe Biden did as vice president operating on behalf of the U.S. government, it was completely in line with State Department policy and the Obama administration's policy. So even if there was money going to his son, it didn't affect our policy and it didn't affect Joe Biden's actions. Is that good enough?
No, it's not. And in fact, that's what a trial is all about. There are a lot of people in this country that get prosecuted by the U.S. Justice Department based on circumstantial evidence, and the way you figure out the credibility of that and whether someone is guilty is through a trial. In this case, possibly impeachment, because if all of this is true, if we assume it's all correct, then it's very clear that Joe Biden may have committed acts that fall within the definition of impeachment under the U.S. Constitution.
Hans von Spakovsky is a veteran of the Justice Department. It's why we wanted to talk to you today, because you have keen insight into this, not just the law, but how the Justice Department works. What are the conversations here in this town, over there at the Justice Department today? And also, what are the conversations in Mr. Weiss's office in Delaware? What are they doing? What's their next step?
I think they are doing everything they can, scrambling to figure out how to cover themselves from the sworn testimony of two IRS agents who came forward at great risk to themselves. No one has been able to in any way impinge on their credibility and what they say about the deliberate mishandling of this case in order to shield Hunter Biden and Joe Biden is, I think, unanswerable. And I have no doubt everybody over at Justice is scrambling to try to cover themselves from what they see coming down the road.
Seeing the way this plea deal worked its way through court yesterday, and how this judge, it appears, courageously asked all the right questions and sort of put this back on track. Do you have confidence? Should we, the American people, have confidence in this Justice Department as it pertains to this matter, or is it now time for a special counsel?
Oh, I think we passed the need for a special counsel a long time ago. And no, I have no confidence in this Justice Department whatsoever to actually do a good job. Like I said, just going back to what I said earlier, the fact that they hadn't already, heck, a year ago, filed charges against Hunter Biden over his violation of FARA, or that they actually allowed his evasion of taxes from a number of years ago, they allowed the statute of limitations to run on it. Yeah. So the whole point of this investigation seems to have been to do everything they can to minimize the damage against Hunter Biden, because that minimizes the damage against Joe Biden. One
last question here, and we only got about a half a minute, but there's some talk now that they're going back to the drawing board to come up with another plea deal. Since there's an ongoing investigation with much larger charges, why would you, as a U.S. attorney, even entertain a plea deal right now? You have all the leverage against the suspect.
Look, your analysis of this is better than the Justice Department. That's exactly right. There's no reason to do a plea deal when you've got all this evidence of other felony violations of the law. And if I was the special counsel in charge of this, I would not be entering a plea deal. I would be filing more charges against Hunter Biden.
Well, I mean, I guess unless you offer a plea deal so that the suspect that you're dealing with will point the finger to the big guy, right? Go after the real big kahuna, but I don't think that's going to happen in this case. Hans von Spakovsky, thank you, sir. Always good to talk with you. We'll leave it there. There's more to come. Keep it here. It's O'Connor Tonight.